Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show. Hi, everyone. I have a great guest for you today, and her name is Joie Goodkin. She's known as a trailblazer in business because she started and built two successful companies and created hundreds of jobs. She went on to sell one of her companies as part of a Wall Street underwriting and became the president of a county-wide United Way. Then she was making deals. Now she's making art. Joie commissions personal mandalas and sells art. Welcome, Joie.
Thank you, Gayle, for having me on your show this morning.
Oh, you are so welcome. I wanted to ask you, you wrote a book called You Can Do It, which I think is a great thing because I think everybody can do it if they put their mind to it. But why did you write the book?
The book sort of happened because I was always told when I would tell people my funny stories that everybody would, not everybody, but people would say, you ought to write a book. So one time I was with somebody who said that to me, and she said, I have a literary agent and the rest is history. It just happened. I guess it was meant to be.
Well, it's really interesting because, first of all, I think everybody has a book inside of them, so I have no problem with that at all. However, it is not easy to get a literary agent. You can self-publish these days, and it is considered legitimate now. 10 years ago, if you self-publish, it was, who are you really? But now, self-publishing is a mainstream thing as well. So tell us, how difficult was it for you to get a literary agent, and what was involved in that?
Well, it really was easy, and it really was almost irrelevant to the process. I know that sounds a little strange, but it just literally happened. In the introduction, I talk about asking this girl to join me for dinner because we were both alone in a hotel. We stayed there for 3 hours, and I was telling her my business stories. She was a businesswoman in San Francisco, just on a trip, and we've stayed in touch. Now she heads a big ad agency in Chicago, and she's the one who really inspired me with, you have to write a book. You've inspired me so much. You have to write a book. And then, like I said, Dr. Gayle, it just happened because I just had so many stories because I was doing this before many women were in business.
Well, you sound like me, Joie, because I can tell you I started business when I was 21, and it was way back in the late 50s, early 60s. And believe me, there were not a lot of women in business at that point, so I can identify with you there. But you say that the book is also filled with what you called Joie-isms. So tell us about that.
A Joie-ism is a short, pithy way of giving somebody an idea that will help them reach their goals, build their business, and primarily give them confidence. It was just a short, easy way of writing up ideas that, like sound bites are to a program, the Joie-isms are like little bites of wisdom that can help somebody reach their goals.
Well, that's really important because it's not hard to get discouraged, especially in these times today. So it's easy to get discouraged and think, well, where am I going to go and how am I going to pay my bills and where do I go from here? But since we're talking about women who are over 50, this is even more dramatic because, many people, in fact, I was just talking with someone about this last night, and many people over the age of 50 now are being furloughed or downsized or right-sized as we've known, but they aren't going to get their jobs back because this is a convenient way for many companies to say, well, these are the high-priced people. They've been here a long time. We can substitute when we go back to our normal days with people who are younger, who are less high priced. So people are very concerned today about, being successful from this point on and getting where they need to go. So Joie-isms are probably now more needed than ever before. But you also say that you became a publisher. So you were not a publisher, though, when you got this book done. So how did all of that come about?
Well, my career, there's a big gap, Dr. Gayle, between the end of my career and when I retired and when I wrote this book just now. So it was like one of my businesses was a publishing business because it was a printing and graphic design, and the type of publishing we did would have been known as vanity press. We were paid to publish whatever it was if we published a book, but we primarily did a lot of, printing and collateral and annual reports and stuff like that. But I would say that it is very key for everyone listening to realize that within you are all the answers that you need for your best life. And these are challenging times, but you need to reach in and pull out your uniqueness and what makes you you and what makes you joyful. And that's a great place to start to rethink and solve your current situation.
Well, one of the things that I'm known for, hopefully, is helping people create joy in their life, because I think that's so important. And I think as you get older, although certain things become easier, certain things become harder as well. And
Right.
sometimes it's harder to be joyful about things because there becomes aches and pains and distance from your kids and all those kinds of things. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's really, really important. But you made this transition. First of all, you were in business, then you got into the United Way. So what kind of timeline was that?
Well, United Way was at the same time that I was heading up JMG Publishing, which was a time when it was very rare that a woman would even be on the board, let alone become the president of it. But a big part of who I am is I always was an activist. I always cared about the social justice and equality of people. And I would involve myself in organizations that showed people how to make their lives better. And the United Way was kind of a catch-all umbrella for that. And it still is. It was just a natural thing. And when you're a businesswoman or any business person, networking is a big part of it. And in those days, we did networking in person, where more people may do it online now. But a lot of people I knew also were involved in these things. And it was a big part of my life to be active in community affairs.
Well, I can appreciate that, because I was the first I was chair of the Better Business Bureau of South Florida, and I was well, I don't know if I was the only woman who was chair, but I sure was we were the third largest in the country. So I was the first woman to chair that. And I know what that involved. And I know what I did to increase the membership. And we created a foundation and we did a lot of things. So I can appreciate what you went through there. And absolutely, I mean, I was a networking queen. I just was everywhere at once, because that's my forte. I mean, I'm great at meeting people. I love meeting people. I'm very social. So it was it was just natural for me. So I can appreciate what you went through and so forth. So how long did you stay retired, or are you retired now? And how are you utilizing your time, especially where we are at the point with the virus, where everyone is kind of self-quarantined at home?
Well, I've been retired a long time, but just because you're retired doesn't mean that you don't do things. And one of the points I make in my book is that if you think about what it is that you enjoy doing, what it is that you can remember as a happy memory, and think that that may give you a clue as to how you'd like to spend some of your time now. Retirement can be the most magical time of your life, but like everything, attitude is so key. I think it's really important, especially now when you're so bombarded with negative news, that you just limit how much news you're willing to listen to. And going from there, I wound up spending a lot more time doing art and painting, but I also love outdoors and I love hiking. And nature is my biggest joy. And I would tell anyone out there, if you're really feeling overwhelmed, go stand next to a tree. And if you feel embarrassed about hugging it, nobody's watching and nobody cares. I think it's one of the most therapeutic things a person can do is to relate to how, if you look at the back of your own hand and you look at a leaf, you'll see similarities. Nature is there and has withstood all of the trials and tribulations of thousands and thousands of years. And it's just a metaphor for where we are now. And if you go out and breathe in nature, whatever's bothering you, I guarantee it, you're going to feel better.
Well, I love the fact that you say, when you retire, you don't retire. That's the whole point. People who retire without a plan have a problem because they don't know what to do with themselves. They've had this schedule that they've done for many years, and now they get up and they don't know what to do. And I think I agree with you. I mean, of course, I'm never going to retire unless, and I'm just, not able to do anything. But I just can't imagine not, like people say, well, how do you feel, being at home all the time now? You can't do anything else. But that's fine. I've got my cats who keep me amused. I have my TV that I watch when I want. I have my books that I can read. I exercise every day in my apartment. So it's a way of continuing your life and being a part of this new generation. So what do you say? What advice do you have for young people who are just starting out in business? I mean, it's a whole different world out there, Joie, since you and I started out. So what do you advise to young people?
There are so many things I could say. I'm trying to think what would have the most meaning at this point in time. But I think two things come to mind for me. One is a quote by Henry Ford. And that quote is, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And what I mean by that is you have to believe that what it is you want to do is possible. And once you believe you can do something, the universe will open up and guide you. You will have ideas, you will see things, a magazine article, a book, a person you meet, anything can stimulate what it is you should be doing. I love that quote from Henry Ford because first, believe in yourself. The second thing I would say is trust your intuition. And we all have it. And if you'd like me to elaborate on that, I could do it.
Well, I agree with you as far as your intuition is concerned. When people say to me, what do you regret, or what would you do differently? I'd say, I do think, I happen to think that coaches and mentors are important, but I always say I would listen to my gut first, because when it has said to me, whoa, whoa, hold on, it's been right. So, Joie, I agree with you. I think that you're absolutely right on that. I think your intuition has a lot to do with how you are and what you succeed in and so forth. And I also agree with that quote from Henry Ford, which, by the way, I used to use all the time when I was teaching customer service. I would say, if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're right. You're absolutely, I mean, that quote is right on target. So I agree with you 100%. But you also, you're considered a trailblazer for women in business. I don't know when you started in business. I started in 1959. So tell us your journey. Tell us what it was like being a woman in business for you. Tell us about maybe the obstacles and the roadblocks you faced, or maybe even the discrimination or whatever. I don't know how you feel about the Me Too movement now. I always say I probably was harassed and never even realized it, because I just thought they were crazy, but and I would laugh at them. But tell us your experiences, because I'm sure you got a lot of them.
I will. I think it's delightful to meet you this way, Gayle, because we're both two peas in a pod from a time when we were both, it sounds to me like trailblazers. But my business career actually started when I was 8 years old, and which sounds a little nuts, but I rented comic books to my friends so they wouldn't have to buy them in the candy store for 10 cents because my friend's father was a cartoonist and brought home the comic books and we would read them. So I had the thought, gee, if we could read them, our friends would read them too. We could rent it to them rather than they're having to buy it. That was my first business when I was 8. And I really think the bottom line of that for someone today is find a need and fill it. It's very key that there's a need for what you want to do. A lot of people may think from their ego, that's not a good place to think from. You have to think of what will benefit somebody else. What can they use? What kind of service? What do they need? And if it's something you enjoy, very key that you really like what you want to do, because then it won't even seem like work. I found in the course of my career that I just went ahead and did what I wanted to do without giving it a whole lot of overthinking. I think sometimes we think too much. You don't have to know the whole plan. Just start somewhere. Dr. Gayle mentioned she has cats. Well, when a cat plays with a ball of yarn, it unravels it. It doesn't know where that ball of yarn's going to go, but it knows that it's there. Do the same thing in your thinking. Just let it go. Roll it out. Go with it. You can always switch course. Just start someplace. Just do it.
It's so funny you talked about comic books. I did not rent them, but my father had a drugstore. And in the drugstore, he sold comic books. And he would bring home comic books and the movie magazines, which were really big at that time.
Oh, yeah.
And I would read them, but he'd say, now, you can't read them at the dinner table. You can't read them anywhere. They're going to get dirty, because when I was done with everything, he would take them back to the store and he would sell them. But I had the benefit of reading those. And it's interesting because if you talk about those kinds of things, I started my first business at 13 selling Avon cosmetics door to door. I mean, at that point, there was no age limit or anything. And right. I had broken 22 pair of glasses. And my father said, if you break another pair, you're buying them. And of course, I broke my 23rd pair before I even got out of the optometrist's office practically, because I sat on them in the car. But the only thing available was babysitting, which I didn't like then, and I still don't like now. And so he said to me, well, I said to him, could I get a real job? And he said, well, if anybody will hire you. And of course, those days, the newspaper was full of jobs. So I went through the newspaper and thought I would make a perfect Avon lady, because as I told you, I love to meet people. So I took that big, huge black box, and I was a tiny little thing, and I went door to door. And of course, people were home then. So I would knock on doors. They'd let me in. I'd sit down on their sofa, and of course, wouldn't leave until they bought. So I became at 13 the most successful salesperson in my whole area, and I continued to sell it all the way through college. But it's interesting because, and then of course I created all my other jobs until I was 17 and went off to college and did some different jobs there, and then graduated at 20 and was in business at 21. But Joie, it sounds to me like you have the attitude. I love, I believe so much in positive thinking. I have a program called Mindset Matters, and you are not giving up for anything in the world. I mean, whatever happens, you figure out a way to make it work or to make it better. And so to me, that is the biggest sign of resiliency that you could possibly have. And that's what I see is lacking in a lot of young people today. I don't think they're as resilient as maybe you and I once were, maybe because you and I, have made it too easy for them. I don't know. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I really think that the world has changed remarkably when you see so many people even having dinner together, all looking at a small screen. we were saved from that. We had to use our imagination. We had to create our own play. When we talked to people, we actually looked at them and talked to them. Technology has made a huge impact for good and for some negativity, in my opinion, of what's happened. But I would say that the basic human needs and what people love, they'll never change. And what you need to do if you're struggling out there is to think about what it is you enjoy doing. Close your eyes and visualize, when was I really happy? What was I doing? And at that point, think about how you could take that experience and make it into something that you continue doing, whether it's in your work, for your work, in your life in some way. We're all unique. Find the you-ness in you. And as Dr. Seuss says, there's no one more you than you. You know, no one is youer than you.
It's
So
true.
it's
Everybody has something
individual.
unique. Absolutely. Everybody has something unique about them, even though they don't see it. And what I suggest doing is, if you can't figure out what's unique about yourself, go to your friends and say, what is unique about me? And they will tell you. I mean, they see things in you that you think are, well, that's just me. You know, that's just every day. I mean, what's so
Right.
good about that? But they think it's unusual. Now, we have about 4 minutes left in this segment, because we, of course, do this in two parts. But I know you also write in your book about perseverance, and I'm a big proponent of being I call myself, I say, success equals discipline and persistence. So when you talk about perseverance, you say it's a great reason for your success. So what is that all about?
Well, in my book, You Can Do It, one of the chapter titles is Perseverance Pays Off. And there's so many great stories in there that I don't have time to retell, except to say no is just a word on the path to yes. Don't give up so easily, because many times people don't know why they need your product, why they want it. Sell the benefits, show them like you're their best friend, to tell them this is great for you, and just don't give up if you truly believe in what you're doing.
That is so true. A friend of mine says no is a complete sentence. And I thought, that's really true. But usually people say no because, but just say no. That is a complete sentence. And you're absolutely right. You have to keep up and keep up and keep going. And what most people don't realize is how many failures successful people have had. The only difference is they don't talk about them. Well, that didn't work, so let's try something else. That's kind of the feeling that people have. And so, when we talk about being persevering, and we talk about, it's not a negative, it's a positive. And if you have something on your mind, as long as it's ethical and moral and positive, keep after it, because the people who have really become heroes are the people who go after something and believe in it and keep fighting for it. And you were head of the United Way in your area, and that's what United Way does. United Way, is a part of that. So, we have just a couple minutes left, Joie, in this segment. Is there anything you would like to leave our audience with before we take our break?
Well, I would just love to say that they'll enjoy these stories in my book, You Can Do It. And I'd love everyone to visit my website, joiegoodkin.com, and I spell Joie, Joie, because this book really is a funny book with great stories. The perseverance stories have cracked up a lot of people. It's better to read them than for me to tell you about it, because they're just were so much fun and they're inspiring. I would like to leave you with the thought that this book will give you confidence and inspire you to be your best self.
Well, there you've heard it from the horse's mouth itself, Joie Goodkin, and she wrote this book called "You Can Do It." And I really think that it's something that no matter what your age, you're going to benefit from. And it's the subtitle is "Tireless Wisdom from trailblazing businesswoman, and
Timeless.
timeless wisdom from a trailblazing businesswoman. And that's what she is, and that's what she was. And so it's all a part of uh, who we're talking with today, Goodkin. And I have to tell you something. When we come back, she's got a whole bunch of other things to share with you. And the interesting thing is, she's not stopping. She's still going. She's got a whole bunch of stuff she's got on her plate yet. So stick with us. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes. You've had the opportunity to get to know me over the last few years, and I'd like to get to know you as well. One of the things I'm offering is training for the media. I have a wonderful program that will get you ready for any radio or TV interview you might be offered. Many of you are doing wonderful things, but no one knows about them. Others of you are successful and wonder, what's next? Whether you're in a business or have a special cause or a specific event you're promoting, media can help, and I can help you master your message so you can master the media. If this sounds interesting to you, email me at gaylecarson13@gmail.com with media training in the subject line. I promise I will be in touch.